What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
So the time has come to predict Colby Covington, Leon Edwards. Very close fight. I mean, depending on which sports book website you look at, some people think Colby's the slight favorite. Others have Leon Rocky Edwards as the slight favorite in this fight. But the bottom line is it's very close, and it's a very good stylistic matchup. You have Leon Edwards, who's got some of the most lights-out, precise striking in the UFC right now, against the wrestling/cardio machine in Colby Covington. This one, to me, has 5-round fight written all over it. Obviously, anything can happen, but both of these guys are durable, and both of these guys have a gas tank that just won't quit. How do you see it playing out?
I think the odds makers have this thing exactly right. If you go to one website, Colby's the favorite. If you go to the other, Leon's the favorite. I really think this is a super competitive match. It's the best matchup that the welterweights can possibly put together for their title. And, you know, Leon Edwards went in there against Kamaru Usman and proved to the world that he's the best fighter in the world. But not only proved to the world, he proved to himself that he's the best fighter in the world. And I don't think that if he wouldn't have gone through those fights with Kamaru Usman, he would be as confident in a fight against Colby Covington as he is. But man, Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman, while they have some similar traits in their fighting style, they are completely different fighters. And I think the gas tank is going to be a major weapon for Colby. And while Leon Edwards is a very patient fighter, and he knows obviously he can wait till the very last seconds of the fight to get himself a victory and get his hand raised, man, Colby Covington is not the kind of guy that you can just be super patient with. You kind of have to bring the fight to him, because if you don't, early on he's going to steal the first 2 or 3 rounds and have you fighting from behind, and that's not where you want to be with somebody who has the ability to take the fight exactly where they want it. They can put you on your back at any time. They can put you up against the cage and beat you up and just eat minutes off of the clock. Leon Edwards has a tall task ahead of him. Colby Covington has been the #1 contender at welterweight for a very long time, and I see this fight being ultra competitive. I, too, think we're going to see the majority of 25 minutes of this fight.
Yeah, I think we're in for a long one. If it is a finish, it's going to be a late finish, but I'm predicting a decision victory, and I'm going to predict Leon Edwards is going to win this fight.
Wow.
And there's two main reasons why. One is that above 35 curse that everybody talks about.
Yeah.
I believe the statistic is 2 and 20 for people that have attempted to get a UFC title after their 35th birthday. 2 have achieved it, 20 have fallen short. Colby Covington is now 35 years of age, will be 36 in February.
Wow.
And the other is Colby hasn't fought since, I believe it was either March, if I'm wrong, it was April of 2022.
Wow.
So we're talking about a year and a half that he's been away from competition, and that fight was against Jorge Masvidal. So while that fight was fun for a lot of other reasons, Masvidal wasn't really at the top of 170 at the time that fight took place. So it's been a very meaningful period of time since Colby Covington has been in the cage against the most elite of the elite at welterweight. And as you said, Leon Edwards is the most elite welterweight on the planet right now, and he proved that to himself in the second fight against Kamaru Usman and to all of us. He was able to, all the naysayers were saying, yeah, anybody can get caught, but he was getting dominated for 5 rounds by Kamaru Usman, and his coach literally had to infuse some energy into him in order for him to get that finish. But the second time around, that wasn't the case. The second time around, Leon looked really good. He controlled the pace of the fight. He dictated where the fight happened and how it happened and at what cadence and at what range, and, literally picked apart one of the best welterweights that the UFC has ever seen in Kamaru Usman. So I think Leon's riding into this fight with a lot of confidence, and it's confidence that is deserved. It's well earned, and he's going to present a lot of problems for Colby with his precision and his striking. If he can keep this fight at a kickboxing range and use a crisp jab and some good low kicks to slow down that grappling, maybe even some push kicks, and keep Colby sort of at the end of that jab and in kickboxing range, he can really start to do some damage on Colby and slow him down. On the flip side of that, if Covington is able to close the distance and smother Leon and make this a close fight as far as proximity is concerned, get him up against the cage, wear him out, we could see that Leon versus Kamaru first time around start to come out a little bit, where he was deflated. He started to get a little bit discouraged with himself, and that's where Covington can really have his moments and shine. But I do think Leon is precise enough. I think his grappling is very underrated. I think his grappling and his anti-wrestling specifically is going to help him out tremendously in this fight. And for those reasons, I'm picking Leon Edwards to win a clear-cut 49-46 decision victory against Colby Chaos Covington.
That's a nice prediction. And oftentimes you'll hear people people say that fighting is not a physical sport, it's a mental sport. And I would venture to say there's a handful of people, maybe not even, that are able to tap into the mental warfare and the mental aspect of fighting better than Colby Covington. If anybody's able to get up under people's skin and ruffle feathers, it's Colby Covington. And I think he saw a major chink in Leon Edwards' armor when he saw him get discouraged in that fight against Kamaru Usman. When you see that 1,000-mile stare that he had and his corners literally yelling at him, and that moment will give you goosebumps. If you have his coach, and you get the audio of his coach yelling at him like, "Come on, Leon, you got to snap out of this. You got to go in there and do this.
Stop feeling sorry for yourself, Leon."
Yes, that is that's like a Rocky movie. You can't even write that stuff in Hollywood. Colby Covington knows that type of stuff. He's a mental warfare genius, and I think he's going to be able to tap into it. And another aspect of Colby's game that meshes so well with his mental warfare and his ability to get under people's skin is the fact that he's like a juggernaut. He never stops coming forward. He's got an endless gas tank. If we go X's and O's and we go pros and cons on both of their lists, even Colby Covington's not going to put on his side of the pros list that he's got a better gas tank than Colby Covington. Nobody's going to say they got a better gas tank than Colby Covington. Now, when you go into the X's and O's and you start to talk about who's a better striker, of course that goes to Leon. Who's a better wrestler? Of course that goes to Colby. But Leon's got some very sneaky stuff as far as grappling goes when you're talking about jiu-jitsu. I just don't really see him having the skills to submit Colby Covington. It's too high of a level. People are getting too good at defending jiu-jitsu submissions in the highest level of MMA. And I think a wrestler is so hard to get off of you once they get there. And Colby Covington has proven to us that not only is he an overwhelming fighter when he gets the fight to the ground or up against the cage, he's also an overwhelming guy to deal with on the feet. And I think that's the key for Colby Covington to get his hand raised. If he can go out there and wrestle and get the fight to the ground when he wants to, he's going to be a problem there. If he can push Leon against the cage, he's going to steal minutes away from him, and he's going to eventually start to take the rounds away, which is going to make Leon have to risk it a little bit more so he can get his hand raised. But at the same time, his striking, while it's not as impressive as most people at the top of 170, and it damn sure isn't more powerful than a lot of people at 170. He has a cumulative striking and volume striking down like almost nobody else. And if he's able to do that and avoid some of the high-level sneaky striking that Leon Edwards is going to bring to the table, I think he's going to be a real problem. I'm going Colby Covington, getting a unanimous decision, 5 rounds. I'm not going to go all 5 rounds. I think he's going to have to win I think he's going to win 3 rounds. I think Leon's going to win 2 off of some good striking and good range management. But at the end of the day, Colby Covington's going in there. He knows this is the last opportunity he has to get that UFC belt. And while I believe he should have had his hand raised and been given the BMF belt after he beat Jorge Masvidal, they didn't do that. That belt's more rare than the UFC title. I'd love to see Colby Covington get his hand raised in this one. I think he's going to get it done, and I really think he's going to use that wrestling and that gas tank to do it.
Definitely going to be a close fight, but I can't wait to see.
Me either.